now to the main news that's been dominating the last couple of days, which is the riots that started in Los Angeles. And there's some unrest in Atlanta, and it's been spreading to other cities. What are Democrats saying about this internally? Externally, some are still calling it peaceful protests. And in fact, LA was so peaceful that Karen Bass had to do a curfew. It's amazing. She had to contain the peacefulness by issuing a curfew. Now, to Senator John Fetterman's credit, he said, look, this is not peaceful. This is a riot. What are we doing here? This is violent. Explain to me, because is that a little bit of a divide in the Democrat Party, like one that's living in reality and one that's living in fantasy land? Please, Mark.
It is. It's another divide where the larger group is the group that's wedded to the past. There's some important issues here. I don't think anyone should be cavalier about putting National Guard or active duty military on the streets of the United States, whatever they're going to be doing. That should be done with thoughtfulness and care and fidelity to the law and the Constitution. And I think the debate about what to do with the tens of millions or maybe millions, well, it's hard to say, but certainly millions of people who came to this country illegally and since then, as far as we know, have committed no crimes and have contributed to society and are woven into the fabric of a lot of communities. Those are two really important debates to have. But Democrats can't move to those debates for two reasons. One is their positions on those two issues are, for the most part, out of the mainstream, and confronting that is something they don't want to do. And second, again, back to Trump derangement syndrome, they just want to talk about Donald Trump having a secret plan to declare a military junta in the United States and have active duty military shooting civilians all over the country. The most Democrats now look at Gavin Newsom with new enthusiasm and excitement because they just want there to be a big fight between the resistance and the president. That's where most Democrats are. Some, like John Fetterman, and he's not the only one, David Ignatius, columnist in the Washington Post today, said quite plainly, this is a 10-year failure on the part of the Democrats. Like, we can't be in the debate about use of the military. We can't be in the debate about who should be deported if the Democratic Party doesn't have a clear point of view about some of these issues where they are on the wrong side of things. That position is smaller than the Trump derangement syndrome one, and it's not dominant. They can barely get the words out of their mouth to say there's no problem or there is a problem. And you pointed out the strangeness of the mayor saying everything's fine, but we need a curfew. The reality is there's a lot of issues here, but this is quite simple to me. Federal law enforcement was doing something that was a campaign promise of the president, but also is under the law. And state and local officials could not protect either them or civic order and private property. Pretty basic. The President of the United States is responsible for protecting ICE officers. The President of the United States is got to have to ensure domestic tranquility if state and local officials can't or won't. And there's no local police force in the country, with the possible exception of Gotham City, who has the capacity to put in the physical infrastructure to make sure there is order restored and civic unrest deterred and property destruction unmolested. The Democrats just can't talk about these issues because they don't want to come clean with their being on the wrong side of so many of the underlying factors. And until that happens, my friend John Podhoretz tweeted this morning that he's watching the Democratic Party lock in their minority status for 20 years because of their failure to just speak the truth about what's going on. That might be a little bit of an overstatement, but it's certainly a minority of Democrats now I talk to who seem to get what's happening.
Yeah, and so first of all, I agree with everything you said. No one should want to cavalierly throw the National Guard on the street. My opinion was always I would rather be on the side of not necessarily being wrong, but a little bit overreacting early than late after 2020, where I feel as if there was widespread destruction. So at least that's my temperament angling in that direction. And I'm willing to hear, a counter to that. I will say, though, someone that is non-political in my life, just a working class person. She's great. She voted for Trump, but she can go either way. So funny. Ran into her and she's like, Charlie, what is up with these riots? She comes out of nowhere. She says, this is what the Democrats do, right? I feel like every couple years they just burn down our cities. And for me, it was if this is just a meta narrative. Again, she does not know about the big, beautiful bill. She doesn't know about, any of this stuff. It's just like the one thing that for her is it's pattern recognition. She's like, I feel like every couple years they're just burning stuff down, and I don't like that. And for her, that is just a tattooed impression, more so than Trump impeachments, more so than all the stuff that they're throwing at Donald Trump. You know, he's an insurrect. There's something about chaos in the streets that politically is very unpopular. Who would have ever thought so, Mark? And then connected also to the Democrats back in the 70s. Isn't there a connection to how the Democrats played a little bit of footsie with these guys back in the 60s or 70s, and they were not rewarded very much?
Yeah. Being the party of weakness and tolerance for violence, it's not a winning place. And we've always had, in the modern era, we've had the notion of the Democrats as the mommy party and Republicans as the daddy party. You know, you hear Democrats denouncing the violence, and it's the most pro forma thing possible. It's like watching, a third-ranked local TV anchor read a teleprompter. There's no emotion to it. They just know they have to say, we all decry violence of any sort, da da da. If I were the mayor or the governor of a state with that kind of violence, I wouldn't be saying how limited it is, and it's only in a few neighborhoods. I'd be expressing moral indignation and focused determination to put a stop to it. And again, I've said this before, they should be thanking the president. They can say we have disagreements with the president, and he shouldn't be deporting people who sell papaya in the park. And we don't think we should be cavalier about the use of military. But thank you, Mr. President, for making the National Guard available and for making Marines available so we can restore order to our city. Because our first obligation to our constituents as mayor and governor is to keep people safe and to not allow the wanton destruction of property. And instead, they're claiming the president is trying to impose a military junta on the whole country. And your friend's point of view about the Democrats, and I think this dovetails with what John Podhoretz thinks he's seeing, it's like basic table stakes. You want to be in a discussion about what our national immigration policy should be, you got to denounce people who are destroying property or threatening federal law enforcement. How could we expect people to want to serve in federal law enforcement in complicated and dangerous jobs if we are cavalier about threats to them? I mean, the mayor and the governor should be as outraged as the president about it, and instead they're reserving their outrage for the president.
There's a lot of talk about what's happening in Israel right now. Hostages being released, terrorists resurfacing, Gaza plans, and so on. But there's one thing we tend to overlook: the people of Israel. The war has taken a huge physical and emotional toll on the Jewish people. And that's why I want you to know about the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. And I want you to support the important work they do. IFCJ is on the ground throughout Israel, providing food and life-saving aid to the sick and elderly, even released hostages and their families. Join with me and visit ifcj.org/learn more. And it's just remarkable because from just a purely political strategist standpoint, there was just kind of a lot of just annoying right-wing infighting last week all across the place, right? And it's just that the Democrats solved that issue for us. So thank you guys, I guess. I mean, I hate to see it. I don't like disorder. I don't like seeing arson. But, I mean, the right has never been more unified. And it seems as if this might be spreading to other cities. Atlanta wasn't nearly as bad as what LA was, but it was certainly bubbling up. And you're right. It is kind of this like pro forma, like check the box as if they don't really believe it. And I said this for quite some time, that people say, well, do the Democrats stand a chance in 2028? Who knows? Maybe the economy will be terrible or whatever. But I could tell you this, that at least ideologically, if the left does not change its appearance quickly on trans stuff, immigration, and crime, I mean, that'll be a tough mountain to climb. And Gavin might be, resurrecting his appearance with Democrats, but I could tell you with moderates and people across middle America, he's now being associated with riots in addition to a failed state.